So now we've got the controller of this company has established the following activity cost pools and cost drivers. So nice and easy here. I'm going to just make it a little bit larger. Okay. So we've got machine setups. The budgeted overhead is $350,000, number of setups, and the budgeted level of cost driver is 225. So when we look at this, we can already, it says calculate the overhead that should be assigned to each minimum order of film chemical. Okay, wait, pause. I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's all the activities, right? Here's all the estimated overhead costs. Here's all the cost drivers, the names of the cost drivers, and then here's the estimated total cost driver. Each order must be a minimum of 1,000 boxes of film chemical. So they're making film chemicals in batches, and each batch is 1,000 boxes of a chemical. The production requirements for each minimum order are as follows. So for each order of 1,000 boxes, this is what they use up. Okay, so now it says, calculate the overhead that should be assigned to each minimum order of film chemicals using the above data. Okay. So let's see what this looks like. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate all the activity rates. Okay, so here's each one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the dollars, estimated manufacturing overhead dollars, and then I'm going to do estimated cost driver. And we're going to calculate the application rate for each activity. So 350,000. And then we have 125,000, 75,000, 110,000, and 400,000. That's dollars. Then the estimated drivers, 225, right? This is 25,000, 7,500, 400, and 30,000. Keep in mind, this is per machine hour. This is per inspection. This is per kilogram. This is per kilogram also. Oop. And then this is per setup. And how I'm getting these is I'm just looking at the cost driver and I'm saying, once I've calculated the application rate, this is what it's going to be based on. So it's fairly easy. We take the estimated, divide it by the cost driver, and we're going to get a number. I'm going to copy it down. Let's just copy it down. There we go. Okay. And now we have it, right? We have everything. So I'm going to change them so that there we go. Okay. And these are all dollars. So we have all the application rates. Now, it says here, don't forget, calculate the overhead that should be assigned to each minimum order of film chemicals using the data. We know the minimum order is going to take 10 setups, 2,500 kilograms for material handling, 300 kilograms for the waste control. So we know all the actual use. So I'm going to copy this. Going to put it down here. And I'm going to say per minimum order, the overhead that must be allocated is, and that's what I'm calculating here. So how many setups? 10 setups. Material handling, 2,500 kilograms. Waste control, 300 kilograms. Quality control, 4 inspections. And then other overhead, 750 machine hours. I'm getting all of that from right here. That has to be given to you in the question. So I'm just going to put setups, setups, kilograms. This is inspections, and this is machine hours. I'm going to multiply it, of course, by the application rate. And luckily, they're in the same order. There we go. When I multiply this out, it will tell me how much overhead to apply to each of these minimum orders for each of these activities. If I now add them all up, this will be the total overhead for the minimum order, which is 1,000 boxes. If I wanted to know how much will be allocated per box, that's 1,000 boxes for each minimum order. It's going to be $42.15, $42.16 overhead per box, right? That's what it's going to be. Now let's go down here. Calculate the overhead that should be assigned to each minimum order of film chemicals if the company decides to use a single predetermined overhead rate based on machine hours only. So now we're going to do the traditional. It's called the traditional, also called plant-wide overhead application rate. Don't forget, we're going to take the total overhead. Do we know what the total overhead is? Sure we do. We simply have to add together all the overhead for all the different activities. So that is 1,060,000. That's the total overhead. So we're going to take, of course, total estimated overhead in dollars divided by the total estimated cost driver. In this case, total estimated overhead, 1,060,000. Total cost driver is the total machine hours. Machine hours right here, 30,000. Machine hours right here, 30,000. So I'm going to take 30,000 machine hours. I'm going to calculate the application rate using the plant-wide. That is $35.33 per machine hour. Now, let's look at per minimum order, the overhead that must be allocated using the plant-wide rate. Unlike up here where I'm using the activity-based costing, I'm going to use the plant-wide rate. So I know how many machine hours. So I'm going to take 750, and I know it's 750 because over here it says 750 machine hours right here. So 750 machine hours. I'm going to take the plant-wide rate, $35.33 per machine hour, and it's going to calculate how much overhead to allocate to 1,000 boxes, 26,500. This is the allocated overhead using the plant-wide rate. Remember how many boxes we have? 1,000 boxes. What is the overhead per box? $26.50 overhead per box. So let's compare. This is the overhead per box using the plant-wide rate. This is the overhead per box when we're using the ABC method. Notice that under the ABC method, we are allocating more per box. Why? Because it is recognizing that each box is using up different rates for all these other activities. We have used one activity to allocate the overhead when we're using the plant-wide rate, but that activity does not reflect all the different things that are done to produce one box. So by splitting it into all these different activities, we get a better allocation. We don't get a perfect allocation, and we don't get an accurate allocation because it's still an allocation based on estimates, but we get a better allocation.